Hello everyone and welcome to the Middle Ages channel. When you think of a medieval noblewoman, what comes to mind? A beautiful lady in a pointy hat waiting in a castle for a knight in shining armor. Maybe a princess from a fairy tale. Well, today we're going to pull back the velvet curtain and see what life was really like for these high-born women. It was a world of stark contrasts, filled with both privilege and pressure, luxury and limitation. From the moment they were born, their lives were mapped out for them, a journey shaped by family, politics, and the rigid expectations of society. So grab a cup of mead, or maybe just some tea, and let's journey back in time to explore the true life of a medieval noble lady. Let's start at the very beginning, childhood. A noble girl's education wasn't about algebra or chemistry. Instead, it was a practical curriculum for her future role as a wife and mother. She'd learn to read and write, often in Latin or French, the languages of the court and the church. This wasn't for personal enjoyment, but to manage a household, correspond with other noble families, and read religious texts. A huge part of her day was spent with her mother or other ladies of the household, learning the intricate arts of needlework and embroidery. These weren't just hobbies. They were essential skills for creating tapestries, banners, and fine clothing, all of which displayed a family's wealth and status. She would also learn to sing, play a musical instrument like the lute or harp, and dance. These were the social graces that made her an attractive candidate for marriage. And let's not forget about running a household. From a young age, she'd learn about managing staff, ordering supplies, and the basics of herbal medicine to care for her future family. Her childhood was essentially a long, intensive training program for the one job that mattered, being a wife. And that brings us to the most pivotal event in a noblewoman's life, marriage. Forget about romance and finding your soulmate. For the nobility, marriage was a business transaction, a strategic alliance. A daughter was a valuable political asset. Her marriage could seal a peace treaty, acquire new lands, or strengthen ties with a powerful family. Negotiations could start when she was just a toddler, and it wasn't uncommon for girls to be betrothed at age 7 and married as young as 12. Though the church preferred the age to be a bit older, she rarely had any say in the matter. Her father chose her husband based on what was best for the family's power and prestige. On her wedding day, she would leave her home and everything she knew behind to join her husband's household, often in a completely different region or even country, where she might not even speak the language. It was a daunting prospect, moving into a new castle where she was a stranger, expected to immediately take on the immense responsibilities of a lady of the manor. Once married, our noblewoman became the châtelaine, the mistress of the castle. This was no small task. While her husband was away at war, at court, or jousting, which was often, she was in charge of everything. She was the CEO of a massive and complex operation. Her day started at dawn with prayers in the private chapel. After a simple breakfast, her work began. She oversaw the entire household staff, from the cooks in the kitchen and the grooms in the stables to the maids and laundresses. She was responsible for managing the estate's finances, keeping detailed accounts of all income and expenses. She had to ensure the castle was well stocked with food, wine, and other supplies, a huge logistical challenge that involved planning months in advance, especially for winter. The storerooms, or bateries, were her domain. She held the keys, a powerful symbol of her authority. If the castle came under attack, she was expected to organize its defense, commanding the soldiers left behind and ensuring the safety of everyone within the walls. It was a role that required intelligence, strength, and a will of iron. Beyond managing the castle, a noblewoman's primary duty was to produce heirs, specifically a son. The pressure was immense. The continuation of the family line and the inheritance of titles and lands depended on her. Childbirth was incredibly dangerous in the Middle Ages, and many women, rich and poor, did not survive it. If she successfully had children, she would oversee their early education, just as her mother had done for her. However, she wasn't a hands-on mother in the modern sense. Noble children were often raised by wet nurses and governesses, though the lady of the house would certainly supervise their upbringing and instill in them the values and skills they'd need for their own future roles. In her free time, she might indulge in activities like hunting and hawking. This wasn't just for fun, it was another display of status and skill. She might also play chess, read romances, or practice her music, but even her leisure was often public, a performance of her refined and noble character. Life wasn't just work and duty, though. The great hall of the castle was the center of social life, and the noble lady was its hostess. She presided over feasts and banquets, elaborate affairs designed to showcase her husband's wealth and power. She would be seated at the high table, dressed in the finest silks, velvets, and jewels. Her fashion choices were a statement. Sumptuous fabrics, vibrant colors, and intricate embroidery all signaled her high rank. She was also a patron of the arts. She might commission tapestries to decorate the cold stone walls, or host traveling minstrels and poets who would entertain the court with songs and stories of chivalry and romance. Her piety was also on public display. She was expected to be a model of Christian virtue, attending daily mass, giving alms to the poor, and supporting the local church or monastery. Her life was a constant performance, lived in the public eye, where every action, every word, and every choice of dress was judged. So, was it a gilded cage? In many ways, yes. A noble woman enjoyed a level of material comfort and security unimaginable to the vast majority of the population. She never had to worry about where her next meal would come from, or toil in the fields. She lived in a fortified castle, surrounded by luxuries. However, her personal freedom was severely restricted. Her life was not her own. It was dictated by the needs of her family and the rigid social structure of the time. She was a pawn in the political games of men, her value tied to her fertility and her ability to manage a household. Yet we shouldn't underestimate her power and influence. As a chatelaine, she wielded real authority. She was a manager, a diplomat, a defender, and the anchor of the noble household. The medieval noblewoman was far more than a damsel in distress. She was a formidable figure, a woman of substance and strength who played a crucial, if often overlooked, role in shaping the medieval world. Her life was a complex tapestry of privilege and power, duty and confinement. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into the life of a medieval noble lady. I hope it gave you a new perspective on these fascinating historical figures. What part of their lives do you find most surprising? Let me know in the comments below. I love reading your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the Middle Ages channel for more journeys into the past. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.